So this is our first show of JagCast, produced by the Mesquite at A&M-San Antonio. I am your host. I'm looking at the camera right now. I am your host, the editor-in-chief of the Mesquite, Oscar Gonzalez. This is my co-host, Jerry Quijano.
What's up, guys? Good to see you.
Yeah, and our guest for today, it's none other than Professor Moore. She's the communication department
You're trying to think of all
coordinator, professor, a little bit of everything.
Yep. Director of Student Media.
Director of Student Media.
Program Manager.
A lot of things.
Yeah.
That's the best way to put it. So this is our first show, and since we're student media, we decided to put together a podcast because podcasting is a new way. Well, I wouldn't say new way. It's been around for a while, but it's a different way of putting on content. It's a great way for interviews. I've listened to quite a bit. I mean, Jerry, you've listened to plenty, right?
Yeah, I've listened to a lot of podcasts.
And furthermore, you're sort of getting into podcasts now, right?
Yeah, I was watching this morning Serial. Have you guys watched that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you can't watch it.
Well, I can listen to it. Yeah.
You can't watch Serial.
It's been around for a long time, but it's a good program. I mean, I think that it's a great way to engage students and have them listen.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's something I've done on my own site, and I've listened to quite a bit, and I've always been. I usually listen to comedy ones, but still, you get some really in-depth interviews when you're able to talk to someone for more than 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, since this is our first show, what we're going to try to do is we want to bring you up to date on what's happening at the A&M-San Antonio campus. So we're going to take a look at our website. These are the stories that we covered last week. And we have stories coming up today. So the first story that we had last week was the healthcare vendors. So we have the healthcare fair that goes on. They do it quite a bit here at campus. And the healthcare, it's a lot of quick studies that it's a lot of advice, but there's some, there was a test that they were doing for, what was it? I believe here it mentioned.
Well, there were a bunch of vendors there for the health fair.
Mm-hmm.
They were offering support services and information for students. So the idea on that story is that they were going to go through those tables and then find out what resources are available for students. Because remember, a lot of those students don't necessarily have health care. It might be their first exposure to services that they have in the community.
All right, and our managing editor, Ingrid Wilgan, she did the story, and she talked about this one person, Geraldine, I can't, Geraldine, she was there to talk about Huntington's disease, because that's something that I don't think a lot of people, think that it's something that they could catch, but it is. And it was an interesting story because Geraldine, she goes around because, one of her, I believe it's her grandchild, has a disease, and a lot of people don't know about it. So this is what's available, and people are able to go by and check for if they have, diabetes. They were to do quick checks here and there.
Mm-hmm.
I think they also check your kidneys. I believe those are the thing that they check. So that was available for last week.
Yeah, let me say one thing about storytelling that might be of interest to our viewers is that reporters get assignments, and the idea is to give an overview of the events that are happening on campus, but also they're trying to pinpoint the reasons why people volunteer to come talk to students at public university. So she focuses on one person. So I think that one of the things that student media and reporters are really good at is finding people's motivation and helping people understand that they're all part of the same community.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of community, one of the other events that happened that was pretty much drowned out was the Fall Fest.
Fall Fest.
So, we didn't attend because you didn't go, Jerry, right?
Because you don't like the rain?
He doesn't like pumpkins.
That too. It's been terrible with rain this past 2 weeks, and I think it's gonna happen again this weekend. But yeah, Fall Fest happened, and it was only for 4 hours. Usually, Fall Fest is an event where the student organizations are able to put on. It's a little festival, so they're able to sell drinks and food and raise money, and that didn't happen.
Yeah, there was a bit of a damper on Fall Fest. So that's put on by Student Activities, and it's the major fundraiser for student organizations on campus. So that was a profit loss for the groups, I'm sure.
Yeah, and some
Your
of the
own
groups.
SPJ made about $26.
Nah, jeez. And that's usually a time when some of the groups make hundreds of dollars, and some groups didn't even show up. That's how bad it was that day. We heard there was a kind of a meeting to help offset that, but we're still waiting on a word.
Still waiting.
Then we also have pictures of the zombie walk that was done from a few of our photographers. Zombie walks, it's amazing. They I believe they had maybe 100,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is crazy. And dressed up as zombies.
Hey, I know I'm your guest, but can I ask you a question?
Sure, because we're going to grill you soon enough.
You got stories about zombies and health issues and other community issues in Fall Fest. So what's the main thing that you guys do? And what's your mission at the Mesquite?
Wait. All right, no. We're going to reset that, because that's more of a question for you, since you actually started this.
No, this is a
No.
student-run media outlet.
Okay.
I might be able to help out, though.
Now let's. Okay. Well,
Is he
then
refusing to answer this question?
this is a question. So let's ask this. Okay. So, all right. Then let's go into this. So
This is called turning the tables.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the university started in. It was officially brought up to make A&M-San Antonio in 2006. Texas legislature approved it, and eventually, everything started going from there. The first class was 2009.
Well, earlier than that, yeah.
Yeah.
It started before then. The accreditation happened later, but remember that A&M was accredited through the Kingsville system,
Right.
and so there were even classes on the Palo Alto campus. So this campus has been around for over a decade in different settings.
Right.
Now you're here on your permanent campus.
So it was because it was kind of a branch of A&M early on. Then it became its own campus, but it was sort of a branch of Kingsville. Then it became an official accreditation last year.
Member of the
2014.
Texas A&M system.
Okay, so how does a university that just started? How does a university get its own journalism program, or how do you come into play here? Since everything seemed to be started. 2009 was when everything started really going. That it became more of its own entity.
It's a great story. So when I arrived on this campus, about the same year that Dr. Brantley came, there was a lot of energy. You had a full-time faculty member, and you had me come on as an adjunct, and there's 16 students in this communications program. So what's the plan? What are they going to do? So those 16 students got a lot of attention. From there, we kept growing, offering more courses. I saw a real need because there wasn't a low-cost program at a public university for communication majors in journalism. So as I became a professor in practice, which means I had journalism experience, and that was the career path that I followed. And then when I left the newsroom and I had worked on the west side with low-income students, it was the perfect hybrid for me because I wanted to be in journalism and education. So it was a really good fit, and one of the reasons why I've stayed. To answer your question, I think that it was faculty passion, and also the administration provided support. And there was enough financial backing, and the students kept coming and wanting to get a lot out of the program. So there was a need for communication students because there are jobs out there for you. So that's one of the reasons why we've kept moving and growing.
So how do you find out about this place as yourself? Well, let's get some background on you,
Sure.
Professor Moore. What is your background in regards to, like, where'd you go? Where are you from? Who are you?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Okay. So, you know where I grew up? Maine. Snowy,
it's
cold.
right nearby.
Maine. Yeah, right nearby.
Yeah.
And Maine's a great place.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something about Texas. I've been here for 20 years and I haven't left. It's just an amazing place to grow, to start something new. Great place to raise a family. I think San Antonio is just a great city. My background is in communications and journalism and advertising. So I've had lots of different cross training, like we call it in the program. So I've worked on the advertising end, the marketing end, the financial end, and content provider, and then I was a quality analyst. So I've kind of walked some broad circles across the industry in different jobs. Maine, Texas, Oregon for graduate school. So I went to the University of Oregon at the year that they were stripping all their analog equipment out in 2001, putting in all their digital equipment and a big building renovation. So a great time to go to school there. Learned a lot.
Okay, so
Texas.
so you go from Maine to Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and Texas, by Texas you mean where?
Well, you know, I did my last 2 years, kind of like you guys, transfer students, went to Bard College in upstate New York,
Mm-hmm.
and then my family relocated to Texas.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that's one of the big draws. Parents still live in Austin, and then I went to UT for the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And so why did you? Sorry. Why did you want to be a journalist?
Why did I want to be a journalist?
Why did you want to be a journalist?
Well, I wanted to be a lot of different things first before that. When I was 7, I wanted to be a pianist because I was having to practice 3-4 hours a day, so I wanted to go into music. That's where the discipline came in. Then I wanted to be a immigration attorney.
Okay,
Right.
that's
I was convinced I wanted to be an immigration attorney because Maine is next to, come on,
Mexico.
The ocean.
Canada. Texas is next to Mexico. Okay, so I've always been interested
in the borders.
In the borders. Yeah, and cultural assimilation. Because when I was growing up in Maine in the 1980s, there were a lot of Laotian immigrants, lots of Cambodian immigrants. So that was really fascinating to see people coming from the other side of the world to snowy little New England and trying to learn English to culturally assimilate. So one of the first jobs that I had actually after college was as an ESL instructor. So I guess by now, I have about 20 years of experience working with underserved populations. So those are the first stories that I wanted to tell. Excuse me. So the journalism that I was practicing was about underdog stories.
Yeah.
So my attraction to journalism was really started with writing. Okay, before the internet. How to craft a story. How do you tell a story? How do you keep somebody immersed in your story arc? The structure is really of interest to me.
So since we're going about talking about why we're in journalism, well, what's your story, Jerry? Why are you taking this class?
Well, I am a journalism major because, like Professor Moore, I've always considered myself to be a storyteller, and I've always wanted to know other people's stories and really use that to help other people. I think everybody has a story, some part of them that applies to every single person, and that's my personal story. Hearing your story really opened my eyes to a lot of things. You know, it makes sense. It really does seem like you push to help the underserved. That's awesome. I would have never known that about you, but it's really fitting, I think, with the student population that we serve here now. I think most of the students that come here are like English as a first language,
Yeah.
but they definitely face those struggles of having parents who may not have been born here, or parents who, any kind of situation like that. So that's really, really crazy that your situation has ended up like that.
Yeah. I also think, hearing you talk, we have to be careful about the terms that we use, that I use. And I don't think that our student population wants to be described as underserved. I remember using that term in a class when I first came here, and the response was like, I don't want to be labeled that way. I think what's really going on is about raising awareness of the potential that students have that they may not know they have. So you'll hear me in class sometimes say, don't say you can't. You have to change the way that you're talking to yourself in order to progress through the class or to progress through your education and career. So I think that's important. You know, one of the ways that universities get funding for Hispanic students and low-income students is to call them terms and labels, and I think we have to watch that. And I think that's one of the reasons why we want to have podcasts, is because students get to tell their own stories.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Should I tell my story? Nah.
I think we want to hear your story.
I think we do.
Bit, yeah.
Because yours are like, I want to tell people. I got into journalism because I was fed up with the way journalism was done. I did mine out of spite. So yeah, that's my story. Because I'm a big gamer. I run a website, originalgamer.com, and I just saw that there was some really just bad journalism where it was just
There's a lot of bad journalism out there.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because you expect the better, and then you realize, oh, this guy's getting paid, but he really doesn't know much more than me. And when I look at when I see people on TV, when I read the paper, I'm like, okay, that person knows more than me. That's why I'm reading what they're saying, or I'm seeing what they're saying. And then I'm looking at these guys, I'm like, these guys don't know jack. And here they are having millions of readers listening to their stuff, and it's just like, yeah, whatever, So that's why I got in. It was purely out of hate. All right, so back to our little history lesson with Professor Moore. So you go to Oregon, you go to graduate school. So let me ask you about that, because we've talked about it, but I and maybe Jerry, you may be interested in hearing about this as well, because when I've looked into graduate school, especially when it comes to journalism, there's a lot of pushback from people that are saying, no, you don't need to get a master's in journalism. All you need is just go to a small paper and just get a job and just stay there for a couple of years and then go up from there. But there are still people that are going to get master's degrees, and there seems to be a reason for that. Mm-hmm. So why would you go to get a master's
in journalism? Mm-hmm. The first thing I would say is that when you go, if you decide to do a master's in journalism, that you've got to do other things while you're there. Mm-hmm. You have to be out in the professional world. So as a graduate student, that's not a time to nail yourself to the student newsroom. That's something that you can do as an undergraduate. I think it's probably of most value for people who have been educated in another discipline. So if they did political science, or if they did history or some other field as an undergraduate, then it's probably great for them to go and apply that to storytelling, even if they were in maybe computer science, because then they can really work on that marriage between technology and journalism. I think it's different for every person. I mean, it really matters what you do with it when you get out. There's lots of people who can go to 2 great journalism schools, come out, and depending on how motivated they are and what their portfolio looks like, everyone can have their own disadvantages and advantages. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think it just depends on the individual.
So what was your choice? What was your reasoning to go to graduate school?
I was obsessed, honestly. I mean, I couldn't stop writing. I couldn't stop producing. I lived in small communities in Texas, and I was in Austin, and I was always writing, and I was really interested in photography and multimedia, and I just started producing projects on my own. And then I started selling them to papers, and started a freelance career. But then I needed more training. I needed a hands-on production program where I was really going to benefit from the intense professional master's experience. So different kinds of master's programs. Remember, I have an MS, Master in Science, which is a concentrated, shorter program, whereas other faculty in your program might have an MA or a PhD. So different schools, different programs.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Then, so you do the graduate school at Oregon.
I did, yeah.
Then, what was your professional experience after that?
After that, I went immediately to work for an ad agency.
Okay.
For one sole reason. It paid really well. It paid better than the journalism I was doing. It was also really hard to make it as a stringer. I was a young woman at the time. I had 2 babies. So it was a really great to do advertising because the clients paid you well, and I was a really good copywriter. Why? Because I had been a journalist. I'd just come out of grad school. And I was teaching part-time too. It was a transition point for me, late 20s, had done a lot of freelance work, had done a lot of immigration reporting, and then decided that after having been at the magazines that I really wanted to find out how to teach students, in particular students in San Antonio, how to be college bound. Because when I came here in 2001, there was a big push, a mayoral push, a citywide push. More students need to go to college. So I jumped on that train because I thought it was a good place to be.
Now, you mentioned about the magazines. What kind of work did you publish in the magazines? I mean, did you focus on, were you just sort of a jack of all trades, where it's like, hey, we need someone to write about like blah, 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 or were you focusing on certain
So
beats?
when I was at UT, I went over to Texas Monthly magazine in Austin. And I started out as an intern and graduated to a contractor and was there for 2 years. Worked as a researcher, went into the marketing department, bounced from different departments, which was really relevant for me later as a teacher because I understood how the different parts of the house work together. That's a really rare internship. They probably don't allow people to do that anymore. But because now it's constrained and it's 16 weeks and it's for course credit. But what a wonderful experience to be able to walk around that 16th floor on Congress Avenue in Austin and see all the different facets of a magazine, from the visual end to the research to the fact-checking to the business end, working the phones, getting all the advertising revenue. At a time when there was a lot of pressure and stress on the industry. Texas Monthly, fortunately, is still around, but the tides have really changed. Products are changing, and so the revenue models as well.
Yeah, So I've talked with reporters that were there pretty much right around when the internet changed everything.
Yeah.
So what was your take on that when it seemed to be like 2005, 2006 that everything went like south in regards to newspapers and magazines?
Yeah, the pivotal point was 2008 and 2009. Thousands of journalists were laid off from their jobs because one of the reasons is because advertising plummeted. And lots of confusion for journalists. How do I make use of the internet? We were behind the curve. We saw it coming. It was part of our production process. But we weren't taking advantage of the tools. Nobody knew at that point that you could use Twitter as a reporting tool. It was something that was just kind of ignored, in part because of the daily deadline. The pressure to perform and produce words and collect sources outweighed the use of technology. And also, you developed a skill set, whether it be in school or on the job, and you didn't necessarily have all that support from management or your editors to play around with your phone to see how it's going to help you as a reporting tool. Not like we do now. Now the expectation is you go in the newsroom and you better be hooked in and wired in, and you better be a backpack journalist and know how to do all those things. But that's taken a while and still evolving. It's changing all the time.
Yeah, I know. I've spoken with several journalists, and it's one guy in particular. He's a buddy of mine. He works for a website, a gaming website, and he had this gig where he's still at, and it was kind of a brand new endeavor by this company, and they brought in a bunch of magazine people. And he was the only person that had online experience. And I said, for like first couple weeks, how's it going? They don't know how to do a daily story. They're magazine guys. They're used to taking a month to do an article.
Yeah, totally different.
Yeah, and so he was just freaking out because they don't know how to put a story together within an hour, rather than so and that was back in like 2010. So there were still people catching up to everything, and
Yeah.
it's nutty to me, because when you run your own website and so forth, if you start from scratch, you have to learn all those skills, because you can't depend on other people to do it for you. Yeah. All right, so let's go back here. So you're go to Oregon. You freelance.
He's stuck on his timeline.
You're doing everything. So you come back to Texas. Then how does it that you hear about an opening at A&M-San Antonio? What brought that together? What brought you here, so to speak?
You know what? Originally it was Marianne Odom. Marianne Odom is the chair of the journalism program at San Antonio College. And
Okay.
I had been doing what I do, using the skills as a reporter to reach out to people and networking, and was all over the city, stopping into different news programs to find out, well, what is the journalism world in San Antonio? And I continued to write, and I was freelancing for the Express News, and I was teaching on the west side at Good Samaritan Community Services. I was the director of literary arts there, and the program called Modelo that doesn't exist anymore. But it was a college-bound program to help the high school seniors write their college essays, to help them, assist them. And I received word that there was an opening to teach a features writing course. I thought, oh, what a perfect fit. That's my background. And the class was at 8 a.m. 8 a.m. I don't think we have any 8 a.m. classes anymore, right? We recovered from that.
No.
I teach a 9 a.m. class now, and still my students are pretty grumpy about that.
They should be.
So, half of those students at the time were English majors. So it was a good hybrid mix of communication students. And, that was 7 years ago, and I'm still here.
Yeah, still here.
Yeah.
And so with the A&M-San Antonio becomes a university. We start having our own place.
A lot of success, a lot of growing pains.
So you and Dr. Bradley, who's a professor here that teaches all the theory and history and so forth and ethics of journalism. You two come here, and then it's just like, all right, we're gonna do a journalism program. We're gonna create a website. I mean, is that such a?
Is that how it went down?
Is that how it went?
So what we did is we listened to a lot of students. We sat down with students constantly in the classes, mixers, outside of class, and asked them, what are we doing well as a program, this small cohort, and what do we need to be doing better? And every year we've asked those questions again. So it's really the students who've helped build the program, because they're responding to what the industry wants of them. So the other thing that we're constantly doing, every hour that I'm not here, I'm out there at the news stations or the San Antonio Current or the Express News, researching how those firms and agencies are changing, the marketing agencies, the ad agencies, public relations. What are the jobs? How much do they pay? Do they have internships for our students? What's the demand? What's the need? So that is what happened. That is what is happening now. That is what will happen in the future. It's a big dialogue between the students, the faculty, and the regional economy. It has to be.
So the students said we want our own news outlet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. The students said, I want to have a community, and I want to have a voice in that community. That's really how it started.
Right. And then that's when the big idea came about to create the Mesquite.
Yeah. So the way that it happened is paper is expensive.
Yeah.
And putting out a paper every week or every month is really tough work. So is doing the same for the digital online site. But the one advantage you have is that when you look around, you have a commuter campus. Why not create a mobile platform for those students to work in, rather than keeping them there until 2 or 3 in the morning and doing a traditional legacy paper? How much is it going to help the students to learn InDesign over WordPress? Those are really conscious choices that you have to make, both really, really valuable programs, but what do the students need that's more relevant for the kind of jobs that are out there? So part of it was an economic choice. We had to move fast. We had to get the students publishing and writing pretty quickly and actively engaged in social media. So it made sense for us from an economic perspective to start online, and from for their relevancy, start digital. Because that's what we wanted them.
Because especially back then, I mean...
Way back then?
6 years ago, when there wasn't even really a campus. Well, 6 years ago, it was what, Gillette?
We were at the Gillette campus.
Yeah, so...
And that's a former elementary school that we rented from, I believe, SISD.
Yeah, so Gillette, if anyone in San Antonio, it's near Palo Alto College. And you can still see the remnants of that particular building. And then everyone jumped to...
Not remnants, Oscar. It's still standing.
There's nothing there. I mean, it's just an empty building, but it has a big A&M-San Antonio sign there. Then everything moved to Brooks.
There was a split. The first building, which is now the Madla building, was erected, and then some of the faculty, including the College of Business, went over to the Brooks campus. So yes, the communication program was at Brooks for 3 years.
All right, and that's Brooks City base, which is I've always found to be just kind of strange in a way that's the base. That I mean, because when you think base, you think base. You don't think like a place where people actually go that aren't military. So it's always thrown me off that that's a campus, or that's considered a second campus, at least for right now. Well, I still haven't even gone.
Oh, well, that's a lease agreement between the university and Brooks Development Authority. So when you think about real estate on the south side of San Antonio, buildings that already have built-out classrooms, that was an easy fit for the university.
Yeah, and then eventually they started building more on the campus, and last fall, that's when we have this building that we're in right now, the Central Academic Building, where now we've been here running the Mesquite. So I want to talk to you about sort of trends in journalism right now, and something I've noticed, because I'll put it this way. I read quite a bit of controversy that goes on, and there's especially in games journalism, there's a big controversy that it's very male dominated.
Are you feeling the opposite here with so many women students?
Well, that's the funny thing about it is that I'm seeing these. It's very male dominated, but then when I'm seeing stories that are coming out about tech, it's done from a variety of sources. From female writers. So it's a weird sort of thing that I see, because when I hear that, I'm hearing this coming from people that are actually writers for other websites that aren't considered games journalists because they're not always writing about games. But they are writing about tech, and they're writing about culture, and writing about geek stuff, and it's mainly women. So tell me, I mean, we're looking at...
Jerry, Jerry, with this?
We both look at Jerry. We're both at Jerry. So...
Save him.
So, Jerry, because, I mean, I know when I first took the reporting class, it was...
Did you like that class?
I dug it.
Yeah. That was taught by Sanford Nallen.
Right.
Yeah, Sanford's at Pace Communications now. Shout out. Hi, Sanford.
Yeah. And that class was kind of a refresher, but it also was able to sort of get me going into a new place and feeling it out and taking it from there. But in that particular class, it was pretty much 2 guys, 6 women. And then everything...
Small class.
Right. And everything since then has been 1 or 2 guys, the rest women. So what is your take on it? Because since you pick up on the trends and you hear stuff, and you're obviously a female and you're outnumbered right now. But what is your take on this? Because this is what I see, and then when I read stuff, it's constantly like, well, newsrooms are dominated by men, and it's like I don't know if that's even the case anymore, or it's very quickly turning around once the old guard are retiring or kind of forced to leave.
So the question is, why are women more attracted to the communications field?
Why are we seeing that? Because it's when I'm reading stuff, it's like women are told not to be journalists, and then it comes from female journalists. And then I'm seeing the program heavily dominated by women. So.
Well, there could also be a difference, and we should track this. The number of women in communications program, at least this one, is disproportionate to the number of men. But then what happens when they go out into the field? Who is getting the higher paid jobs? And how many of those women are actually going into the newsroom versus how many of the women are going to public relations? I think that would be really interesting to look at. So just because you're seeing more women in communications programs doesn't mean that's going to be the same, will be reflected in the industry.
Yeah.
So.
Well, but I also, when I went to Berkeley to visit their program, I mean, the one class I sat in on was one guy and like 12 women.
Yeah.
So it's, but I know definitely when it comes to where the communication degree takes you, like PR and so forth, that's one way. But I mean, it's something like something where when I'm looking at sort of my little focus, my little of the world, it's a weird thing to see that people say that, and then coming here and seeing it completely opposite. Where,
Well, it's a common question that comes up in academic conferences, professionally driven conferences. Is not just gender, but diversity in the newsroom. I think that means different things to different agencies, but it's a big topic of discussion. The issue is still, are there more men in higher managerial positions? What are we doing to encourage more minorities to work in the newsroom?
Yeah.
So that's definitely something, questions that are asked by the San Antonio Association of Hispanic Journalists. The great thing about your program is you have so many professional associations locally in San Antonio who can help you answer those questions because they've been in the field for a long time and really driving those issues home in their own spaces.
Then let's talk about the whole tech thing in regards to being an internet website, being an internet news site. So, I've been to San Antonio College and I've seen their stuff, and I went to Palo Alto College and that was a news site. With going strictly digital, how are other people? How are other professors? Do they feel the same sort of way in regards to that? It's just making better sense now because there's a lot of colleges still focus on paper. Is it just that they want to keep it like that? I don't get why. I see why people want to have the paper because it's, you pull it up and you look at it and something. Experience. But I know like San Antonio College, those papers are just staying in the newsstand for most of the week.
Well, let's talk about the Ranger at San Antonio College. Do we know the facts about readership? I actually think that it's substantially high. That paper, that student paper, has built its reputation on being a print paper. Later, they did add digital, and so they're not digital first like we are. But I think on an urban campus like that, with how many thousands of students, every time I go there, there are tons of readers, and they're actively engaged. I know that the advisors there, print is the mainstay. It's incredibly important to their audience, and also as a training mechanism, as a learning lab. They work in that newsroom in the team environment like we do, but it is a different experience. It's a different production experience. It's a different reading experience as well. But I don't think that there are many campuses that are solely focused on print alone. Every campus newspaper that we follow and look at, from small, medium to large, is focused on balancing effort across digital and print, with an emphasis on, okay guys, students, the world is changing, so we need to multiply our skills and make sure that we can do all of it.
Yeah, because that seems to me, especially for college students. Everybody, college students come in plugged in, but they're
plugged into what? That's what we've been trying to answer.
Yeah, because when when they come into class, I mean, they're on their phones already. I mean, they're pretty much, sometimes for some students, you gotta have to really physically grab the phone from them.
Yeah, I was walking up the stairs to your newsroom from the cafeteria, and clearly this group of students was not allowed to check their phones during class, because they come out, whip the phones out, and they're walking down the hallway completely unaware of anything else that's going on, but all 20 of these students glued to the phones in the hallway.
So, but as the editor of the Mesquite, I see students come in, and I know they're plugged in. I know that they're all over the place in regards to social media. I know this. Yet, when it comes to actually following through, when it comes to actually, say, tweeting something newsworthy, when it comes to actually making use of those tools, there seems to be that disconnect. I mean, I've never understood why there's that disconnect where it's like, oh, I use Facebook for everything. Hey, can you put on Facebook what you wrote about? No. So what is that disconnect that you think?
Well, let me ask another student in the room. Jerry, what do you think? What's the disconnect? Because you guys are pretty plugged in. You were applying it because you are a podcaster and you run your own website, so you probably saw the value of it right away. But not every student walks into university doing that. So what do you think the resistance is?
I think for me, the answer I would say is that we talked earlier about branding yourself, and I think for a lot of us, we've already grown accustomed to using it more as a social tool, and now I don't know that, like you said, I don't know that everybody's going to go into journalism or PR or whatever. You're right. I think everybody is connected, and they have every kind of app or whatever, but it does become a little bit more difficult when you have to brand yourself, when it's not whenever you're saying, hey, check this out. For me, I would say it probably wasn't that difficult because I wanted that kind of exposure.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for other people it can be difficult, mainly because they may have like a persona that they already have to live up to on these social medias, and then you all of a sudden it's like, hey, go check out my work. Somebody's like, that's not what you usually post on that kind of.
I think that's
on
a
this
really
site.
good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm the party girl. Now here's my news article.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God, she's got an assignment. They're making her tweet.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's so uncool, man. It's not cool at all. But so I mean, because that's to me. Because to give you an example, so I'm over there at my internship. That's for PR, and I'm talking to people there, and I'm like, so does anybody use Twitter? And they're like, no. And you're PR professionals. You're getting paid for marketing. You're not using this? And then I realized that for some of them, email is kind of complicated. So, I mean, it's the way it goes. I mean, some people get it, some people don't, and some people treat it a different way. So it's mind-boggling to me because as a guy who's had to develop his own brand, his own website, and so forth, that is so ingrained because I can't wait for someone else to do it for me. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's kind of like the thing here where it's like, we can't wait for people to, we can't wait for people to do it to have someone to give us followers just because we're here. We have to go earn it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's always been throwing me off. It's just that big disconnect where, hey, I use Twitter all the time, or I use Facebook all the time, I use Instagram all the time, and then it's like, take a picture of this.
Yeah. Well, and also it's a two-way channel. All these communication streams, we've been talking about using it and using this and using that, but what are they getting from it also? I mean, this is a big subject of study. People your age or younger, are they getting their news from Twitter or Facebook? Not just what are they putting on it, but what are they getting from it? So a lot of books on this topic about your generation.
I know, it's well, technically it's his generation.
Yeah.
I'm a different generation. I'm 37, so that's a different time.
Yeah.
Okay, so last question, because we've been going on for about 45 minutes or so. What is...
I don't get the last question.
I think you do. I think. Okay, we'll talk about it.
What is the goal here? What do you want to see? Because I mean, you went from all right, let's have a couple classes about communication journalism.
Yeah.
Okay, let's have a journalism program. Okay, let's have a news website, and then now, okay, well, now we got a podcast, and then soon we may even have a magazine.
Yeah,
and
let's
then
keep going.
Radio station and TV and all this other stuff. So what is the end game, and what are we trying to push here?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's no end game.
Okay.
It'll keep evolving
Oh,
and
yeah.
going. The goal is to keep the program affordable for students who want to go into communications and journalism. So that's one of the big things that we want to continue to do. We are a public university. Will continue to be. We are located in a lower income area of the city. And so that's one of the reasons why the university is here. So we have to know who we are. We have to know who we serve and where we're sending students. What are we going to do while we're here? Radio, broadcast, podcasting, opening up all opportunities to create an audience. And most importantly, give students press rights and the ability to engage and comment on topics around their university. Because when you go to college and you're a member of a public university, especially when it's growing really fast and it's starting, you have to be part of that process. You have to be able to provide your input and direction, especially for older students who are maybe coming back to school, like Oscar. So those are a couple of things I plan on doing.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so with that, I think we've successfully completed our first show. I think that was a nice introduction. Everybody introduced
I do
them
too.
to
I want
us.
to know what your plans are for the next one.
The next one?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you talking about in general?
In general.
In general, what I want this podcast to be is that it's a place to have a conversation, to really talk about things. Because as journalists, we put a story together, 500 words out of a 500, 700,000 words out of a 20, 30, 1 hour conversation.
Yeah.
And we get the best stuff that we can, but there's a lot of stuff that's missing. And that's why I've always liked podcasting, is that you could only get so much. Like if you look at the Tonight Show, guest comes on there, hey, this is a great story. Hey, I got this story, I got that story. 5 minutes, I'm out. They go on a podcast, or they go on to a radio show, like, for example, Howard Stern. They're on there for an hour, and then that's when the layers start peeling off, and then that's when they start really getting deep, and that's when you really know the person after a while. Mm-hmm. You get past the veneer, and you're just deep into the person. And that's always the interesting part. So that's what I'm hoping with this, is that this allows for people that, regarding the stories, regarding people on campus, regarding problems, that sometimes people want to know more than 1,000 words about what it is. That's what I feel the podcast should be. So we're going to be trying to get guests, and we're going to try to get administrators and different, and we're also probably bringing reporters in to talk about their story.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. So that's hopefully the goal. So let's do this real quick. Before we go, we want to go over real quick what's coming up to Mesquite this week. This week we're looking at, Jerry's story. Jerry actually has 2 stories, hopefully, if he hustles quick enough. The first story is about the Cervantes Institution. So quickly go over what that is.
Well, I found out recently that Texas A&M San Antonio will be offering upper and lower division Spanish courses, as well as a BA in Spanish. And originally my story was to cover the Instituto Cervantes, like you said, which is the largest institution in the world that teaches Spanish. There's a few universities in the United States that have one, and we're lucky enough to have one here.
Yeah.
And so I was really just trying to dig in and see what they have to offer. Why are they different than, they offer them as continuing education. Mm-hmm. So the goal of the article was to see why we couldn't earn credit and when we could. And so I think we achieved that by digging around and waiting to hear back from our sources. We got to what we wanted to. My other story is on tuition increases that will be happening next year.
Right.
Next year, incoming students, current students don't have to worry about this increased tuition, but students that start next year will have a choice to pay a one-time rate, where they'll pay for either 2, 3, or 4 years at a set rate, or they can pay. The tuition increases obviously every year, and so they can take a smaller percentage, but it changes with every year, and it's a pretty big important topic, I thought, and there's only one student at the forum who was asking questions, so I think that's definitely part of the story there.
Right. So that's the guaranteed tuition model.
Yes, ma'am.
By the state. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it seems that communication in general, I mean, coming as communication specialists as we are, the communication to the students just doesn't seem to be working as well here as it should be. Or it could be just that there's not many students, and maybe that's what's...
Well, it's a commuter campus. I think that every department is working furiously to communicate with their part of the audience, whether it be financial aid issues or student activities. I mean, I really think that people are working overtime to make sure that students have the services that they need. But if students are coming to class and then taking off, there's less time for contact, for those substantial conversations between staff and faculty and student groups, and everyone's got a lot of pressure on them. You guys got to go to work, you've got families, you've got staff people who are under-resourced, maybe don't have enough people to do everything that's required in the department. I think communication is one of the biggest issues on campus, and everyone's working at it. I think it'll improve over time. But I think that, I want to commend you guys for starting JagCast, because I think that bringing guests in and having in-depth interviews and having a different way of hearing your sources rather than being quoted, whether it be accurately or inaccurately, which sometimes happen in every student newsroom, give them the opportunity to speak on their own terms about what's going on in depth in their own departments. It's great.
Other stories that are coming up, along with two Jerry's stories at V Hustles. The other two stories, we're talking about the library. The library produced their annual report saying basically how they did in 2014. So we did a quick breakdown of that. That's from Priscilla Galarza. We have another story regarding disability services. Their disability services, normally they would have note takers for students. Now they're using a new process, so we'll go over the process with you. And then we also have pictures from some events, and also, I forgot, Robert's story regarding Campus Carry. Yeah, Campus Carry is kind of a big deal here on campus because last semester, in the spring, the Student Government Association put a poll to the students, and the students, 10% of them, or less than 10%, said that they want Campus Carry on campus. Texas legislature already approved the law, so it will be allowed, but there's still a lot of questions. And we had one of our reporters, Robert Carrasco, go out and speak with the on-campus, the UPD, University Police Department, to ask them what their thoughts are, especially considering the latest run of campus shootings, not even school shootings, shootings on campus that are happening. Then along with that, we have, like I said, some slideshows of some events, Dia de los Muertos, the Sisters Grimm tour, all that. So keep checking mesquite-news.com for all the information regarding A&M-San Antonio. You can follow us on Twitter, the Mesquites, on Instagram, Jaguar Student Media, and on Facebook, Mesquite News. And also on Snapchat, the Mesquites. The podcast will be up on our YouTube channel and hopefully iTunes pretty soon. So we'll keep everybody up to date. So for Professor Moore, and you can find her on Twitter at Prof. J. Moore. Jerry Quijano, you can follow him on Twitter, Jerry Quijano, and I am Oscar Gonzalez, Editor-in-Chief. You can follow me at RichardGamer1. So with that, thank you and good night.